like when you were younger, what did you or think would improve your performance? And then how has your perspective on training like changed over the years? You want to go into that, Katie?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I thought running as much as I could, as fast as I could, as long as I could would improve my performance. And if I just did more than everybody else, I would be better than everybody else. And it was very short-sighted and I didn't have a lot of coaching growing up. So I just kind of was able to run wild with whatever I wanted to do. And in high school, for the most part, it worked out. In college, it got me very injured and into a very disordered mindset. So I just trained really hard, kind of recklessly, and used that as a justification for better performance. But really, partly what I was doing was trying to like obtain the ideal body image that I wanted, and that to me at the time was the same thing. Performance and appearance were very intertwined and blended, and I hadn't separated them yet. So yeah, I would just basically overtrain in order to deal with my body image issues, or the kind of that toxic side of sport that like the comments that would come my way. Just, well, I'll just go run and use that as therapy, and that's how I'll deal with it. So it didn't ultimately, work out so well for me with running, but it gave me a big platform for my future to kind of drive me to do better for other people and better for myself. But kind of trying to use my experience just to do better for the next generation.
How has that changed now for you? Like, how are you perceiving performance improvement?
Oh, how's it changed? Well, now I just know a lot more about training and overtraining and underfueling, and how important menstrual health is, and all the signs of overtraining. That really, having that knowledge really is nice. It's empowering, and it makes me able to really take care of myself. So, now I have the truth and the facts and the knowledge that I needed back then. And um, it's really fun to give that knowledge to other people, especially when they need it, before they start getting into like a disordered mindset or into overtraining.
Uh, Thank you for sharing that. That's really helpful. Nicole, I'm really interested in what you're gonna say for this one, because I feel like you're somebody who I kind of aspire to be more like in when it comes to training. So
Um, Mine, I feel like, is probably less relatable, um, because I like was good at running early and didn't have any idea what I was doing. Um, and more of my insecurities were like mental instead of physical. And so I was on a team where like I was the best person, and like my high school coach did a good job of holding things back. So I didn't like know what other people were doing. I didn't run that like we did our long runs on Mondays at practice. So like I don't know, I probably ran over the weekend some as I got older, but um it wasn't until I got to college that like I started realizing that like the way people ate was like a thing that they could implement into like their training. Um and like I had my period, like I think I missed, like a few periods the first season of like cross country or track or something in high school, and then I had it regularly. Um and then everything was informed by like just doing less. like um which could get me into trouble. Like my freshman year I was not good, because I was like, oh, a long run is 50 minutes, and I had been running like, I don't know, 70 minutes in high school. I um but yeah, and then it turns into like a less is more. And I think I just observed a lot when I was on the college team. Like our team was so big, there were so many things to observe and see like what's working for people, what's not working. Like, and I was more like in my head about depression and self-worth than my body, which is good in one way and bad in another, which is worse. um
Can't compare.
and then I mean I got lucky not having too many injuries, and I was really averse to overtraining. And then when I got further into my career and my mental health was deteriorating, then I was overtraining. um but I never had that marker of like, oh, well, I lost my period, so like maybe something. But I was anemic and like wasn't absorbing iron when I was taking supplements. Um, and then stuff got bad. But it's a very different trajectory. And then also when you like most professional runners, like as we are all trying to decide like what a runner looks like, as you're get into deeper into that world, like you start narrowing in on that like ideal. And so my main thing was like, oh, I'm just smaller than everybody. And then I don't know, I trained less and ran well. And so that, I don't know, my answer is getting very unfocused. Can you help me get back on track?
No, I was just gonna say, like, when did that change? Like, when did you kind of realize that you're having those like depressive like thoughts, and is that
Way too late. I
yeah.
spent a lot of college like struggling. Like, and this is weird to talk about, is like there were probably times before practice when like all three of us were there, where like just before it started I like would go into the bathroom, the green stalls in Jenison, and like cry a little bit, and then like go back to the front of the drill line. And like it's the same thing, like people just weren't equipped. Like they're not equipped to talk about women's bodies in a good way. They're not really equipped to spot depression and be like, hey, this is a real thing. And it got worse the last couple of years of my professional career, when I like felt like I had to do it. I had to be training harder than everybody, like all these ideals that I had never had before. Like in college, I had like the big picture ideas, like, one bad workout didn't really matter. I kind of had like that whole package together. Like I was eating well enough, I was durable enough, I was training smart enough. Um, and then I just started being like, this is what people expect. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm not running fast enough on my run. And oh, is my turnover okay? And like I'm just doing a base run. And it's the end of the season, so I'm probably running like average faster base run than I normally would. But then I would just start picking it apart like that. And then so mine was worse at the end than at the beginning, because I was so aloof.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah,
it's like the more you focused on it, the worse it got.
And like it came being like, and we've had a conversation about this recently, like what if you realized that like you were tough and you didn't have to prove it? I just felt like I had to prove that I was tough all the time on a base run in the middle of nowhere, like with one race left that wasn't important. Like, am I breathing right? Is my form good? Like,
I think about that all the time. The tough enough thing.
Like
even today.
But like, what if you are tough enough already? Then what would you change about like what you thought about all day? Like, and I'm sure you've had thoughts like that too, Katie, like just the competitive levels that we were at, like.
Yeah. And I actually like have taken that competitiveness that I channeled so well into college, and it doesn't go away. Like I still have it, even though I'm not running a ton. And I think that all the time, Bush, what you said, like I wish I was tougher, but what if I am tough enough in my job? I have said out loud before at the end of a bad day, like, what if I were just better? And I like think about that and think about that. I'm like, if I could just do everything right and be the perfect PT and give everyone the right answer and do all my documentation correctly, like wouldn't I just be great? And for a second I believe it. Like it's the old Katie and I believe it. Like, yeah, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do everything and do it best, and that's going to be possible. And then I snap back and realize like that is toxic perfectionism, and that is not ideal. That will make you sick, that will make you depressed, and that will make you worse. And that is something like that I couldn't snap out of in college when I was applying that to my running. And I still find myself applying it to other parts of my personality and my life today. But the difference is I have the foundation of knowledge to draw from to help get myself out of it and get myself back on the right track. So yeah, I do that all the time, even not in running.
And all of this information that we're talking about, like, oh, we learned, in our late 20s and early 30s, like it just shouldn't be that hard to come by. Like these things shouldn't be like secrets we had to unlock. Like,
right. Yeah.
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 Ayn, did you have a similar experience, or how did you come to training and performance in your perspectives?
I'm glad you re-asked the question.
Yeah.
I was so into your guys' answers, I honestly forgot what the question was.
Yeah, just like how your performance and how you perceive it. And then how did it change?
Yeah, I would say, I think, I came from a high school program where we really only ran like 35 or 40 miles a week. There wasn't really a lot of education or resources there. So my experience was very similar to Katie, where it's like, okay, like if you train hard, you'll get the reward. And it does work, like, because initially, like, as a young female athlete, you don't need that much of a stimulus to really start seeing performance times drop. But you only get so far with it before, like the injuries start to catch up. And I also feel like with a lot of young athletes, it's like, you like high school is hard. You have family problems, you have boy problems, and you don't really know where to tailor that energy or, that frustration or anger and those emotions. And so like for me, it just all went into running. So it's like, okay, well, you have a bad boy problem. All right, let's run harder. And so that was kind of just my outlet. And I think, I don't know as a coach, like how you would kind of improve that for young female athletes, but at least just foster the environment where it's like, less is more. Like you don't need to do more. Like running should be enjoyable. It should be fun. It shouldn't be seen as like this outlet for all of your anger and frustrations.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think another part of that is when you do that, you're putting off actually feeling something about it. You're just you're gonna have to deal with those emotions eventually, but just putting them off until later, until you kind of get into that. And I'm probably gonna mention this later on, but you kind of get into that like cycle of just like trying not to feel, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's just a recipe for overtraining.
Yep.
Yeah, and it shows up at the end of your professional career.
Okay, yeah, so I'll go next. So it's very similar. I think Katie Kelly and I are the exact same person. Yes.
I feel like we need to say Katie Kelly is Katie Noble's married name.
Oh,
and
yes.
it's like an affectionate nickname for her. So we're not talking about two people when we say Katie Kelly.
I'm always Katie Kelly, and I
was like, who's Kelly?
Yeah, I can't stop. So yeah, so I think like the same thing, like performance was, just train harder than everybody else, do more. If more isn't working, then just do a little bit more, which doesn't fit well into how I am as it is. Because like if I do reps, then I'll do, like if I'm doing 12 reps, then I'm going to do 12 reps. And like, so it just got into this thing where I would just kind of, it would feed into itself to where I'd be like working out. I was having a really rough time like freshman year when I went to Northern Michigan, and I ended up like just working out for like 2 hours and then just in the weight room, like just lifting after running. So it wasn't just what I was doing. So it just kind of like snowballed.
Was that like at Northern? Was it like, I'm making an assumption about the atmosphere, was like just kind of like isolating up there?
It wasn't like really isolating, because I mean we had the team and we met in like the mornings, but I didn't really have the same interaction with the Sten. The cross country coach was really good, and he was very interactive and had performed at a really high level and skiing, so he was like really interactive. But our track coach, which is what my focus didn't really have a lot of history of like running or anything like that. So I felt like I couldn't really trust the coaching that I had. And so I went and did my own thing, which is never a good idea, and why I have you as my coach right now, because I just want to do like more and more and more. And so that kind of like, I guess like I thought it was more valuable if it was more, and that's definitely not the case. So going into like my perception now is that I'm realizing the value in like taking time, or doing less, and just doing it better and being very present in the moment instead of just trying to do just one more rep regardless of how good your form is or whatever else. But going back to what Katie was saying, like I can get into those moments when I am struggling where I will go back to old habits, or if I'm very stressed out or something like that. And that's a time when I have to be like, okay, if you just stop now, the world is not going to end. Like, it's fine. So like Nicole was saying, like, you're tough enough. You don't have to prove it. And I feel like I try to prove it in a lot of other areas of my life.